in the quiet neighborhood of Dearborn, Michigan, within a close-knit Muslim community. The Hassan family was viewed as a model of stability and success. Tariq Hassan, an engineer, was known by his neighbors as a hardworking man dedicated to his career and deeply committed to his wife, Samira, and their 2 young children. Their life appeared to be a picture of traditional values, seamlessly blending into the modern world. But, as is often the case, appearances can be misleading. When Tariq was found brutally murdered in his own garage, the tragedy sent shockwaves throughout the community. The investigation uncovered a disturbing truth lurking beneath the facade of their seemingly perfect family life. Hidden within the Hassan family was a secret that would unravel everything they held dear. At the heart of the storm was Samira Hassan, a 29-year-old wife and mother who had been living a double life. Her affair with Tariq's younger brother Zade revealed a web of lies and betrayal that no one could have foreseen. As the story unfolded, the community was left questioning who truly bore responsibility for Tariq's death. Thank you for joining us as we delve into this complex story. Don't forget to like this video to support our work and share where you're watching from. From the outside, everything about the Hassan family seemed perfect. Tariq Hassan, then 35, had worked tirelessly to create a comfortable life for his family. Over 10 years ago, he had moved from Cairo to Dearborn for a job opportunity in the automotive industry. This well-paying position allowed him to provide a stable home for his wife and children among a supportive community of fellow Muslim immigrants. Samira, then 29, had married Tariq at age 20 in an arranged marriage. She had felt optimistic, hoping for a stable and respectable life with Tariq. For years, their marriage seemed solid from the outside. Samira devoted herself to her children and the household, managing everything while Tariq spent long hours at work. With their children just 5 and 7 years old, Samira's days were spent caring for them, yet cracks were quietly forming in their marriage. As Tariq's dedication to his work grew, he began spending more time away from home, creating a sense of emotional distance. Samira tried to be understanding, telling herself he was working hard for their family's future. However, the long, lonely days began to weigh on her. She missed the intimacy they once shared, the late-night talks, the laughter, the connection. Now their conversations had dwindled to logistics about the children, bills, and schedules. When Tariq was home, he was often too exhausted to engage, frequently retreating to his office or falling asleep on the couch. Samira felt increasingly invisible. The emotional void left by Tariq's absence grew, and Samira found herself longing for more. She yearned to feel desired again, to reignite a passion that had faded over time. However, she never anticipated that these desires would lead her down a path that would ultimately destroy everything she had built. Then came Zade Hassan, Tariq's younger brother. At 31, Zade was everything Tariq was not: free-spirited, charming, and unpredictable. While Tariq had pursued a stable, traditional career path, his younger brother Zade had chosen a different lifestyle. Working as a freelance photographer, Zade's life was filled with freedom and spontaneity, a stark contrast to Tariq's disciplined world. The 2 brothers had always shared a complex relationship. Tariq, the responsible elder, often found himself helping Zade out of tight spots when his carefree life led to trouble. Despite their differences, they managed to maintain a close bond, at least on the surface. Zade frequently visited the Hassan home, becoming the fun uncle to Tariq and Samira's children. His lively and playful nature made him a favorite in the family, and he quickly formed a connection with Samira over shared interests in art, literature, and music. Zade's relaxed and engaging personality was the opposite of Tariq's serious and work-focused demeanor. Where Tariq was distant, Zade was attentive. What started as casual conversations between Zade and Samira soon grew into something much deeper. Late at night, after the children had gone to bed and Tariq was engrossed in work, Zade and Samira would sit together in the living room, talking for hours. They reminisced about childhood memories, discussed their dreams, and found themselves drawing closer with each passing day. Samira found in Zade the understanding and connection that seemed to be missing in her relationship with Tariq. Zade listened to her frustrations, making her feel seen and valued in ways she hadn't felt in a long time. The attraction between them grew silently, an unspoken tension simmering until it could no longer be ignored. One night, as usual, Tariq had left early on a business trip, and Zade offered to stay overnight to help Samira with the children. Once the kids were tucked into bed, Zade and Samira sat on the couch watching a movie. Though neither was focused on the screen, the energy between them was undeniable. The air was thick with tension. When Zade's arm brushed against hers, it sparked an electric current that coursed through Samira. She glanced at him, her heart racing. He returned her gaze with a mixture of desire and hesitation, the moment they'd both been avoiding suddenly becoming unavoidable. Without a word, Zade reached out and gently held Samira's hand. The room seemed to fade away, the outside world disappearing as he leaned in and kissed her softly. The kiss ignited a long-suppressed passion, and in that moment, Samira felt a rush that melted away her fears, doubts, and guilt. She kissed him back, and everything else fell away. This moment marked the beginning of their affair. In the days that followed, Samira and Zade's relationship deepened. They would meet whenever they could, stealing moments while Tariq was at work or away. The secrecy of the affair intensified their connection. It was thrilling, forbidden, and intoxicating. But with every stolen kiss, every hidden rendezvous, the weight of their deception grew heavier. Samira knew what she was doing was wrong. She was betraying her husband, her family, and even her faith. Yet she couldn't bring herself to end things with Zade, who filled a void in her life that had been growing for years. Despite the excitement, Samira was always on edge, fearing they'd be discovered. Every time she looked at Tariq, the guilt gnawed at her, a constant reminder of the life she was putting at risk. She took extra precautions to cover her tracks, deleting messages and avoiding Zade's calls when Tariq was nearby. But as the affair progressed, keeping it hidden became increasingly difficult. What Samira didn't know was that Tariq had started to notice subtle changes in her behavior. Though his focus was primarily on his career, he wasn't completely blind to her growing distance. He noticed that Samira had become more secretive with her phone, often stepping out to take calls or quickly locking the screen when he entered the room. She also seemed distracted during family time, her mind elsewhere. At first, Tariq tried to brush off his concerns, attributing her behavior to the stress of managing the household and caring for the children. The revelation. As Tariq buried himself in work, subtle yet unsettling changes in Samira began to surface. At first, they seemed trivial. She began dressing more thoughtfully, putting care into her appearance in ways she hadn't for years. Suspicion gnawed at Tariq, an unwelcome feeling that he couldn't shake. He'd always trusted Samira implicitly, but now, doubt crept in, leading him to question her actions. He began observing her closely, picking up on small details that hinted at something amiss. Her phone buzzed more often, and each time she'd glance at it before putting it down with a hint of guilt in her expression. One evening, as Samira showered, Tariq's curiosity overcame him. Her phone lay unattended on the nightstand, lighting up with a new message. Though hesitant, he picked it up, feeling a pang of guilt at the invasion of privacy. But when he unlocked it, his worst fears were confirmed. There, in plain view, was a message from Zade. The words were innocent on the surface, but beneath them lay unmistakable undertones of affection, subtle innuendos, and hints of their secret rendezvous. As Tariq scrolled through the conversation, the truth unfolded before him. His wife, the woman he'd loved and trusted for so many years, was involved in an affair with his own brother. Tariq's heart pounded with a mix of anger, betrayal, and despair. He felt a rage unlike anything he'd ever experienced. The thought of Samira and Zade's deceit cut deep, the hurt raw and all-consuming. But Tariq was not impulsive. He was patient and calculating. He knew he had to confront them, but first, he needed time to absorb the enormity of what he had just discovered. In the days that followed, he stewed in quiet fury, carefully planning how he would expose their betrayal. The anger simmered beneath a calm exterior as he imagined how he'd confront them, how he'd find justice. Thank you for joining us as we navigate this complex case. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. What would you do in Tariq's position? The Confrontation. A week passed, and Tariq's anger reached a boiling point. He could no longer endure the torment of knowing about Samira and Zade's betrayal. Late one night, after the children had fallen asleep, he finally confronted her. His voice was sharp, filled with venom as he accused her of the affair, demanding she tell him the truth. Caught off guard, Samira initially denied it, but when Tariq revealed the messages he'd found on her phone, she could no longer hide. She broke down in tears, confessing to the affair and pleading for Tariq's forgiveness. Through her sobs, she tried to explain how lonely and neglected she'd felt, how Zade had filled an emotional void in her life. But her words only fueled Tariq's anger. He accused her of shattering their family, of humiliating him, and of betraying the life they had built together. The argument spiraled, escalating with each painful word, the weight of betrayal hanging heavy in the air. Tariq's threat. Tariq's rage intensified as he threatened to reveal the affair to both their families and the entire community. He accused Samira of destroying his life, vowing that she would pay for her betrayal. Samira, terrified of the potential fallout, pleaded with him to keep the affair a secret, urging him to consider the impact on their children and the devastation it would bring to their lives if the truth came out. But Tariq's fury was unyielding. He was far beyond reason, too consumed by the sense of betrayal. The confrontation ended with Tariq storming out, leaving Samira in tears, dreading what might come next. The night of the murder. The night was unsettlingly quiet. Samira, still shaken from the confrontation, tried to calm herself, but the air felt heavy with tension. Her mind raced, fearing Tariq's next move. Would he expose her, tear their lives apart, follow through on his threats? Sleep was elusive, and every creak of the floorboard sent a shiver of dread through her. Exhaustion eventually took over, and she drifted into a restless slumber, unaware of the nightmare unfolding below. In the early morning, Samira awoke with a pounding heart, an unshakable sense of dread. The house was eerily silent as she stepped onto the cold floors and made her way down the hallway. Descending the stairs, a strange foreboding filled her. Something was terribly wrong. As she entered the garage, the sight that greeted her was beyond comprehension. Tariq's lifeless body lay sprawled on the floor, a pool of blood spreading around him. His head appeared to have been savagely beaten with a heavy object, perhaps a wrench or hammer. Samira's scream shattered the stillness, her mind reeling from the horror before her. In shock, she dialed 911, her voice choked and barely coherent as she tried to describe the scene. The operator's calm, measured tone felt surreal against the chaos and terror coursing through her. All Samira could do was wait in utter disbelief as the nightmare continued to unravel. The investigation. As Samira whispered, "He's dead. My husband is dead." Over and over, police arrived within minutes. Detective Amanda Price, a veteran homicide investigator, assessed the scene, immediately sensing this was no random act. The lack of forced entry or stolen items, combined with the brutality of the murder, pointed toward a crime driven by personal motives, perhaps anger or betrayal. While paramedics confirmed Tariq's death, Detective Price turned her focus to Samira. Samira's initial grief appeared genuine, but Price knew from experience that first impressions seldom told the full story. Hours after discovering Tariq's body, Samira was taken to the police station for questioning. Her shock and sadness were evident, but as Detective Price delved into their relationship, inconsistencies surfaced. Samira claimed she'd gone to bed early, worn out from the argument with Tariq, and insisted she had no idea who would harm him. But when questioned about their marriage, her answers grew vague, and soon the affair with Zade came to light. Tearfully, Samira admitted the affair, confessing her feelings of neglect and how Zade had filled a void. She swore that the affair was unrelated to Tariq's death, but Price remained unconvinced. Samira's evasiveness and sudden mood shifts suggested something hidden. Still, there was no apparent motive, no financial incentive or history of violence to imply premeditation. Zade becomes a suspect. As the investigation continued, attention turned to Tariq Hassan, Tariq's younger brother and Samira's lover. Zade's conspicuous absence since the murder raised suspicions. Detectives theorized that jealousy or fear of exposure might have driven him to kill Tariq in a moment of rage. Detective Price's team traced Zade's recent movements, learning he and Tariq had argued heatedly at a local cafe days before the murder. Witnesses confirmed that the argument seemed tense, though they couldn't hear specifics. Text messages between Zade and Samira from the night of the murder suggested Zade was struggling with the secrecy. He expressed frustration, telling Samira he couldn't keep living a lie and hinted that something had to change. The detectives saw this as a possible motive but struggled to locate Zade. His phone was off, his apartment abandoned, and friends hadn't seen him since Tariq's death. As weeks passed, Zade became the primary suspect, and police launched a full-scale manhunt. A break in the case. Just as the case seemed at a standstill, a new lead surfaced. A neighbor reported seeing a man leaving the Hassan home around 10 p.m., the night of the murder, hours before Tariq's estimated time of death, between midnight and 2 a.m. The man matched Zade's description, but the timeline didn't align, casting new questions on the investigation. The investigation twist. If Zade had indeed left the house at 10 p.m., he couldn't have been present when Tariq was murdered. This revelation turned the investigation upside down. Could someone else have entered after Zade left? Or was Samira somehow more involved than initially suspected? The detectives were forced to reconsider every angle, probing if a third party had been overlooked. The investigation took a new turn as detectives began searching for alternate suspects. They combed through the crime scene once more, hoping to find overlooked clues that could point away from Zade. Then, an unexpected lead emerged, one that changed the entire course of the case. Surveillance footage from a nearby gas station showed Samira meeting with a familiar face just hours before the murder. Ibrahim Mansour, a close family friend. Ibrahim had been a constant presence in the Hassan family's life, always close to both Tariq and Samira. However, what no one knew was that Ibrahim had secretly harbored feelings for Samira, his affection transforming over the years into an obsessive fixation. The truth unfolds. When Ibrahim discovered the affair between Samira and Zade, his hidden obsession grew into a dark rage. In his mind, Tariq was preventing him from being with Samira, and Zade had taken advantage of her. He felt betrayed by both brothers and viewed Tariq's death as the only way to be with the woman he loved. Faced with the surveillance footage, Ibrahim confessed to the crime in chilling detail. On the night of the murder, he had confronted Tariq in the garage, revealing his knowledge of the affair. Their confrontation turned violent, and in a burst of rage, Ibrahim grabbed a wrench, striking Tariq repeatedly until he lay lifeless on the floor. Yet Ibrahim's confession didn't end there. He revealed that he had carefully planned Tariq's murder, intending to make it look as though Zade was the culprit. Knowing that Zade's argument with Tariq and his subsequent disappearance would make him the prime suspect, Ibrahim hoped that, with both Tariq and Zade gone, Samira would finally turn to him. But it was all in vain. Samira had never returned his feelings, and his obsession had only led him to commit a horrific act of violence. Aftermath and consequences. Ibrahim was arrested and charged with first-degree murder, bringing a close to the investigation. However, the damage had already been done. The once close Hassan family lay shattered, torn apart by betrayal, jealousy, and ultimately murder. Zade, who had fled to a neighboring state, eventually returned to face the truth. Cleared of all charges, he found his life in ruins. The affair with Samira had severed his relationship with his family, and he cut ties with her entirely, unable to bear the shame. Leaving the community, Zade disappeared, carrying with him the weight of broken relationships and unanswered questions. As for Samira, her life had been irrevocably damaged. Though she had not directly caused Tariq's murder, her affair with Zade had set in motion the chain of events leading to it. Ostracized by the community, abandoned by family, and left to pick up the pieces of her life, she eventually moved away, seeking a fresh start. Yet the shadows of her past followed her wherever she went, a permanent reminder of choices that had forever altered her world. The tragic story of the Hassan family became a haunting reminder of the dangerous power of hidden desires and the devastating consequences they can bring. Once a tightly knit family, they were now irreparably fractured, and the dark secrets once kept behind closed doors lay exposed, leaving only devastation in their wake. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts on today's case in the comments below.